This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening, good Friday evening. Thank you for joining us. Earlier this week, a proposal for a silica sand surface mine east of Lake Winnipeg was endorsed by Manitoba's government. Today, another proposal to mine for sand below the surface was rejected. The province says CO Silica's plan to drill thousands of wells into a drinking water aquifer was just too risky. CBC's Bartley Kivas explains.
Applause for Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew and Environment Minister Tracy Schmidt from opponents of a plan to extract silica sand from below the surface of southeastern Manitoba.
CO Silica will not be able to mine silica sand in this region.
Silica sand is in demand for manufacturing solar panels and semiconductors. CO Silica planned to extract the sand from an aquifer that serves as a source of drinking water. That, according to the Provincial Clean Environment Commission, posed a risk to water quality and the stability of the surface. The commission recommended more study. The Environment Minister determined she heard enough.
No one knows what the long-term effects of this proposal would be. And frankly, the worst-case scenarios would be absolutely devastating, as nearly 100,000 Manitobans source their drinking water from these aquifers.
I'm here in the arm of Springfield. This snow-covered road leads to an open area cleared by CO Silica for a processing facility that will no longer be built. Josh and Georgina Mustard live to the immediate west. The rejection of CO Silica has them relieved.
A lot of sleepless nights, wondering what our future looks like for our kids, if we're going to have to split up and move. But I'm glad it's all over now, and everything's going to be okay.
It's not all over. Kinew said Manitoba's ethics commissioner is still investigating claims the outgoing PC government tried to approve CO Silica's license after they were defeated on election night. Interim PC leader Wayne Awaska wouldn't comment on that, but he said he found it interesting Minister Schmidt, and not her department, rejected CO Silica's proposal.
Her and Premier Kinew made this decision, and it's going to be interesting within the next couple days or weeks to see exactly why they made that decision.
In a statement, CO Silica CEO Faisal Somji said Schmidt refused to meet with his company and had no further questions about its proposal. Somji said this decision was political and not based on science or facts. Somji also said the NDP was aware of a plan to allow drilling to be phased in so any environmental questions could be answered before full-scale mining began. He said he's considering legal options. Despite those cheers and all of this morning, the Environment Minister refused to rule out future, more scientifically rigorous proposals to get at the sand below southeastern Manitoba. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, south of Vivian in the arm of Springfield.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Indigenous partnerships must be at the forefront as Canada looks to grow its economy. Speaking to the business community at the Winnipeg Art Gallery, Trudeau spoke about the combined and continued importance of reconciliation. Trudeau says for too long, major projects were pushed through without consideration of First Nations and its First Nation people. He says resource projects, mines, and other large-scale projects must be done in a way to include deep opportunities for Indigenous partnerships.
The only way to build a strong economy for the future is to do it in full respect, in full partnership, and in cooperation and collaboration with Indigenous peoples in this country.
This afternoon, Trudeau also attended the opening of Festival du Voyageur in St. Boniface, sampling, maple taffy with area MP Dan Vandal. Festival starting today, running until February 25th. A Winnipeg man never thought he would have to wait nearly 3 years for jaw surgery. He has been living in constant pain and is on a liquid food diet because he can't open his mouth. He's frustrated with the medical system and wants his surgery done. CBC's Zubina Ahmed brings you more.
Stocking up his cupboard with cans of soups, Daniel McClelland never thought he wouldn't be able to eat solid foods for almost 3 years. His diet consists of soups, yogurt, scrambled eggs, mashed potatoes, and protein shakes.
I can do ice cream. I can do pancakes, but I kind of have to shove them in, slurp it in, if you will. But you know, I take my vitamins. I try to you know, stay healthy as much as I can. But with the lack of like a proper diet, I'm really tired all the time.
The 38-year-old is on a wait list for a jaw joint replacement surgery, which cannot be done in Manitoba. He was referred to an oral and maxillofacial surgeon in Ontario in June 2021. This was after a previously removed bone growth returned, causing his jaw to lock.
So that's the maximum you can...
Yeah.
Okay. And how is it while brushing your teeth? Can you brush?
More or less. I mean, there's a lot of, I use mouthwash.
McClellan says his jaw issue dates back to when he had a tonsillectomy in 2010. A surgical aggravation caused a bone growth, leading his right jaw joint to stop functioning. In 2020, an oral surgeon in Winnipeg used a piece of McClellan's rib to replace damage in the jaw. But that didn't fix things.
It made it worse because I had like a range of motion from here before, and then it went down to that.
He was then referred to a specialist in Mississauga, Ontario, for a total jaw joint replacement surgery in June 2021. That is when his wait time started.
This is the idea. This is what we're going to do. And I'd spoken with the doctor there through a Zoom call. And I said, great, so when's that surgery? And I'm still waiting.
McClellan says he's now frustrated with the whole medical system. Shared Health says it cannot comment on individual cases. Patients are currently referred to one of the half-dozen out-of-province Canadian specialists who could do this procedure. But said specialists manage their own waitlists. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg facility that creates medical isotopes to detect cancer has failed Health Canada inspections for the fourth time in the past decade. Now it's at risk of being temporarily shut down, and that could be devastating for cancer patients in this province. The I-Team's Caroline Bargut explains.
So, the Winnipeg Cyclotron facility is the only manufacturer of medical isotopes in Manitoba. Now that matters because isotopes are used to detect possible tumors. Shared Health runs the facility, which is located at Health Sciences Centre. Last year, it failed an inspection by Health Canada, the regulator. The failure forced the facility to close for 2.5 weeks to address some issues, which delayed screening in some patients. Isotopes are used to create radioactive material, often called a tracer. That material is then injected into patients during a positron emission tomography, also known as a PET scan. The most common tracer uses a form of radioactive sugar, and it accumulates in abnormal spots to highlight possible tumors or areas in the brain, which can then be seen on the scan. Medical experts say if we couldn't make the isotopes here and had to rely on shipping them from elsewhere, it would mean we could only do 10 scans a day instead of 20, increasing wait times for cancer patients. That's because isotopes lose their potency the longer they have to travel.
It's very important for cancer patients in particular. It's a basic method used in cancers such as lymphoma, lung cancer, cancer of the esophagus.
Every few years, Health Canada stops in to do an inspection to make sure the facility meets the regulator's standards. It wants to ensure they're following proper procedures when it comes to training staff, producing the isotopes, and shipping them out. The Winnipeg facility failed its most recent inspection in late October and early November. Health Canada reported it mishandled test results. It didn't follow proper sterility practices and inadequately trained its workers. The facility also failed inspections in 2020, 2017, and 2013. In 2018, Health Canada threatened to suspend its license after the regulator felt the facility didn't do enough to address its findings. So, why are we failing so many inspections?
I think that it's a small operation that's been generally underfunded, so it doesn't have the staff to meet all the requirements.
Saskatchewan has a similar facility. It's called the Sylvia Fedora Canadian Centre for Nuclear Innovation. It's never failed an inspection.
Being non-compliant could be bad because eventually it could be, they take your license away.
Data from Shared Health shows that in February 2020, there were about 175 scans completed. Now, there are more than 300 each month. It takes about 2 weeks to get a scan. Shared Health says there have been no adverse reactions to the PET scan, and the procedure is safe. The facility will soon have to undergo a follow-up inspection to see if the issues have been resolved. If not, Health Canada could pull its license and temporarily shut it down.
That was the I-Team's Caroline Bargout reporting. 3 people have been charged after a man was found dead inside a rooming house in Winnipeg yesterday. The victim has been identified as 26-year-old Mitchell Hanslip. Police were called to the home on Magnus Avenue between Salter and Aikens around 2:30 in the morning. Officers say the suspects forced their way into a suite. They were armed with weapons, including a gun, and they shot a 26-year-old man, police say. 3 men who were seen running from the house were arrested. They've all been charged with second-degree murder. Dozens of people gathered at the Manitoba legislature this afternoon to mark Black History Month. There was dancing and music at the event. Leaders in the Black community and high school students were there, invited to participate in the event. But it was 13-year-old Olufasai Bakiner who stole the show. The grade 8 student says while Black history is celebrated in February, it really should be reflected all year round.
The 13-year-old African youth, I've seen racism displayed all around my life. But wouldn't it be great if the next generation of Black youth in Winnipeg didn't ever experience racism and discrimination in their lives?
Yes, it would, Olufsaya. The grade 8 students were there, so was Black History Month Chair Nadia Thompson, who says the celebration has grown since she joined in 2007 when there were only 6 events. Now there are more than 40 events planned throughout the year. Members of Winnipeg's Filipino community held a vigil last night in remembrance of a 19-year-old who was killed during a robbery 2 years ago. John Lloyd Berrien was shot while he was working at a beer vendor. It happened shortly after 3 a.m. on February 15th, 2022. His mother, Maria Berrien, says she was never comfortable with the idea of him working there, especially late at night.
I was in Grande Prairie, Alberta, that day, so I was not able to come here and pick him up that morning. And I told him that's not a safe place to work, and he said, I will be okay.
A man has been sentenced to 7 years in prison after pleading guilty in connection to the death. Berrien says that's not enough for taking a life. Another man is still awaiting trial. At least 2 school divisions in Winnipeg, including the city's largest, are looking now to raise property taxes. This after the provincial government lifted a freeze on such education levy hikes. The Winnipeg School Division says it needs to raise taxes to match inflation. It's recommending a 3.4% increase. That would lead the average homeowner in the division to pay an extra $51 this year before a provincial education levy rebate kicks in. Pembina Trail School Division is also looking at a 3% increase, which would be about $59 a year for a typical homeowner in that division. The City of Winnipeg has proposed already a 3.5% property tax increase of its own. So the 2 taxes would be combined. When you combine bannock, when you combine it with a canoe, some logs, and a few snares, what do you get? That's the joke I was supposed to read. You get a lot of fun. For Day 3 at Trappers Fest in the Paw, CBC Indigenous video producer Kevin Nipatebo was there.
really nervous. This is my first time. This is the Queen Trapper events. This is Bannock making right now. I've seen it all, wanted to do it all, but today I thought, why not give it my all?
I came last year as a rookie for the first time to compete, and I had so much fun, so I had to return. And then I brought another young lady from my community too. There's three of us so far. Bannock gods be with me today.
Your mark, get set, go!
This is my third year, so I've been competing here for 3 years now against these guys and getting better each time, but they're still pros. Just have fun and compete and try to make some money and good friends and fellowship. It's fun. It's a fun time, good weekend.
A lot of people like get together and like know people and like yeah. I'm not sure. I just come because my mom makes me, but I also like coming to them because they're fun to enjoy.
I get it from my dad. Hey, blessings, Jake, shout him. Woo! Okay, you got one more. You know, just enjoyed my day, joined Junior Trappers. I'm 16, I'm gonna go join next year. This is pretty fun. You know, we do it every year, it's very special to many people. Trappers come out here and, you know, show their skills, show who's boss.
It's a positive environment in the Trappers Festival every year, and I always hear stories and they're all true. You know, it makes me excited to be here, and everybody's smiling, happy, kids are happy, everybody's happy, even the competitors.
Such a great weekend in Manitoba. We got Trappers Fest up in the Pas. We got Festival de Voyageurs here in Winnipeg. All we need now is great weather. Ethan Williams joins us with a look at the forecast.
Well, thanks, Janet. And we are looking at a bit of an improvement temperature-wise through the province today. Some of us getting just above the -10 mark in Brandon and portions of the southwest. But a little bit earlier this afternoon, we were still back into the -teens through many other sections of the province. And a little bit of some snow and flurries moving through southern sections of Manitoba this afternoon, including around the Winnipeg area. Just some light accumulation, really not much to speak of here, but definitely that cloud cover starting to move in. We're also seeing a little bit of snow in northern Manitoba today. You can't see it on this radar because there is no radar coverage in that part of the province, but it's under that band of cloud cover there where it is falling. And we're expecting that to move out through the night tonight into northwestern Ontario. Our friends in Dryden, Kenora, Fort Francis might be picking up a centimeter or two as that moves through overnight. It's the next system that we're watching, though, moving along the Hudson Bay coast, and this low pressure system going to bring possibly some significant accumulation and at times potentially blizzard-like conditions tomorrow. And then as we get into Sunday, high pressure clears out the province. It's also going to bring down some cooler temperatures, especially for far northern Manitoba heading into next week. Some -20s for daytime highs possible there. Snowfall-wise, overnight tonight, another 2 to 3 centimeters in northeastern sections of the province. And then that same area gets hit again tomorrow and as we head into the early morning hours of Sunday, and that could bring snowfall totals close to 10 centimeters in places like God's Lake and Oxford House up toward the Shamattawa area and toward the Hudson Bay coast. Wind gusts going to pick up province-wide here. Overnight, we could see winds as high as 70 kilometers an hour at times along the southern part of the province, and then similar gusts along the Hudson Bay coast tomorrow afternoon as that snowfall begins to move in. Those will start to die down for Sunday. And of course, that'll cause some visibility issues at times, particularly with those couple of systems moving through far northeastern Manitoba. At times, likely until we get to the end of tomorrow and into Sunday. In terms of Winnipeg, 8 a.m. temperature rather of -9. Keep in mind, breezy. We're going to be seeing pretty consistent sky temperatures through the day with a mix of sun and cloud. We get to -4 by noon, and by the afternoon, again, those winds still going to be picking up a little bit. We'll get to around -3 by 4 o'clock. In terms of our forecast, we're looking at a temperature of -2 tomorrow, and then a bit of a drop off for Sunday, Monday, but those winds going to start to diminish and lots of sunshine as high pressure moves in. I'll have a look at your full provincial forecast, Janet, coming up.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Ethan. The Winnipeg Arts Council said it was surprised to hear the City of Winnipeg plans to cut funding to its public art program. This was outlined in the city's 2023 draft budget, effectively cancelling a 20-year program of public art installations across Winnipeg. Now, the city says there is other money in the budget for public art. It just isn't going to the same place. But how do people across Winnipeg feel about this change? CBC's Jim Agapito tried to find out.
Why is public art important for the city?
It's a way of telling the city's story. It engages the community a lot, and I think it's very important.
How do you feel about public art in the city?
I think it's really important for a city, really. Gives a flavour of what the city's all about.
I think it's just sort of like the outdoors. You go outside to breathe fresh air and be with nature, and I think art just does the same thing. It just feeds your mind and, yeah, makes you feel good.
I started as a young artist, and I got creation grants, like regular grants from the Winnipeg Arts Council, and then they had a call out for bike racks on Broadway. So that was my first start, and then they picked my design, and they're still there, and people still, this is probably 2007. People still come up to me, go, is that your bike rack? And it's like already 2023. So I think that's how I started with WAC, and they've helped me with other projects. Lights on the Exchange is a product that started last year, and it was commissioned by the Exchange District and Winnipeg Arts Council. My piece is called Murmurations, which is a nod to my days at the Exchange District. I used to have a studio at the Bait Building early on, and I was on the top floor, and I would see these birds, and I was reminded about the history of the Exchange, which is sort of, for our Filipino culture, it was sort of like sewing factories, and that used to be the Exchange District. So I thought about migration and immigration, and so that's where this piece comes like. So, and it's great because I believe they're putting it up annually every winter to light up the Exchange. So it brings people down sort of the dark days of winter, and people can have some dialogue and discourse with the piece.
But what does public art do for you as an artist?
Again, it makes my eyes open to different types of stories and what happened in location and place. It's sort of a stewardship of and civil discourse of where I live.
The City of Winnipeg are cutting public arts funding. How do you feel about something when you hear about that as maybe as a person not from here?
Well, it's sad news, really. The arts are always one of those areas where funding gets cut, but it would be sad to see, because I mean, if you look around, it's if you're not going to have this public art, then it's not going to be as attractive, is it, to a visitor?
I want to know why they feel it necessary. I know their budget is limited. They're looking to save money, but that isn't the way.
Well, it just takes away from what the city could offer people. I mean, just the people that live here, let alone tourists.
To cut it and to sort of stifle it could end up being sort of dangerous for the city, where people won't have a place to express themselves. It's really about culture and your community. Yes, there's lots of streets to be repaired. There's a lot of things going on, but I think relaying culture and story and diversity, makes a well-rounded city.
The 2024 Scotties Tournament of Hearts begins tonight in Calgary. It will be the 18th and final time Jennifer Jones will compete at a Canadian Women's Curling Championship. After this tournament, she is retiring from women's curling. After skipping teams to 6 previous Scotties victories, 2 World Championships, and of course an Olympic gold medal, Jones says she expects this Scotties to be an emotional one. Speaking with Devin Haru of CBC Sports, she explained her decision and shared her thanks.
This year I was in Japan and both my kids were sick, and I just felt, you know, I want to be there. I want to be the one that's giving them a hug when they're not feeling well. And then Isabella won an award, and I was curling in a slam. And as much as they never make me feel bad, because they always tell me that I'm always there for them, and we have these scheduled FaceTime dates, and even when I'm on the road, I feel like I'm super present. But I want to be that mom with those pom-poms in the front row, just cheering my kids on, and it's just becoming more and more challenging. It's the love of the game that's really kept me going. But it's because of you, honestly, the fans, that you've made my dreams bigger than I could have ever imagined. Your love of the game, cheering us on, being with us in the agony or defeat, and just making the environment electric so that women could shine on a national stage. I've been through the evolution of curling where we used to have one event on television, and now there's so many. And it's because of you, the fans, that my dreams were magical. And so you've made my life far bigger than I could have ever thought possible. And I'll never be able to thank the fans enough, thank curling enough. But just know that I'm grateful for every opportunity. I'm grateful for every message. I'm grateful for every time a fan came down and told me their story. I'm grateful for every hug. And if there's one little kid that I've inspired to go and chase their dreams, whether that means curling, whether that means they want to be an artist or a baseball player, if I've inspired one person to go out and chase their dreams and find their joy, that is what will be the absolute cherry on top. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for cheering for us. Thank you for loving the game. And I can't wait to see where curling is going to go.
Jennifer Jones speaking with CBC Sports. Hey, guess what? Starting Tuesday, after the Louis Riel holiday, our 6 o'clock newscast will actually begin at 6 o'clock instead of 5:59. Cool, huh? And instead of bringing you 9 minutes of news at 11 p.m., we're going to replay the whole hour. It gives you more choices. If you miss the 6, you can watch it at 11 or whatever time you want to in the evening on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. Still ahead tonight. Russia's prison service says Alexei Navalny, is dead. Navalny was Vladimir Putin's most prominent foe. We'll bring you the fallout reaction after the break. Russia's prison service says Alexei Navalny is dead. He was President Vladimir Putin's most prominent critic. The CBC's Briar Stewart is in London, where Navalny supporters gathered today.
Reaction is continuing to pour in after the news of Alexei Navalny's death. We have seen some memorials in Russia, but certainly large crowds have gathered in front of Russian embassies across Europe. We're just across the street from the Russian embassy in London, and a few hundred people here have gathered, some with tears in their eyes. Now, there has been no confirmation of Navalny's death from supporters or his legal team, but Russia's prison service put out a statement this morning saying that the 47-year-old died suddenly after coming back from a walk. Now, he'd been imprisoned at a remote penal colony north of the Arctic Circle. And in fact, he was just in court yesterday, and while he looked thin, he seemed to be in good spirits. He was even joking with the judge at one point. Navalny has been in prison in Russia since 2021. He returned to the country after being in Germany getting medical treatment after being poisoned with a banned nerve agent. His wife, Yulia Navalny, was in Munich today. She was meeting with world leaders, and when she heard the news, she said she had to decide whether or not to go back home and be with her two children or whether to stay there. And she thought that what Navalny would have wanted her to do was to stay there and send a powerful message.
Но если это правда, я хочу, чтобы Путин, все его окружение, путинские друзья, его правительство знали, что они понесут за то, что они сделали с нашей страной, с моей семьей и с моим мужем ответственность.
Now, Russia's President Vladimir Putin hasn't commented on Navalny's death, even though he was out today touring a factory in Russia and speaking to the media. Putin will very likely be elected again next month in Russia. In fact, it's really a certainty because there aren't free or fair elections in Russia. And now you have the man who was the most prominent member of the opposition dead. And there are a lot of questions about just what happens to the opposition movement from here.
I mean, the opposition movement lives in the access to the real information. When people are having access to the real information, they're able to share their views, they're able to think normally.
There has been a lot of reaction from world leaders to Navalny's death, with some officials saying this is just another reminder of the lengths the Kremlin will go to crack down on any opposition. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
$354.9 million. That was the judgment against Donald Trump today in his civil fraud case in New York. Trump was accused of overstating assets to gain better loan terms. Chris Reyes reports.
Let's go through the main points of this 92-page ruling from Judge Arthur Engoron. The real headline here is the amount that he's ordering Donald Trump to pay. $354 million. That's just a few $1,000,000 shy of the maximum penalty that New York Attorney General Letitia James was asking for. And it's not just Donald Trump who's on the hook. So are his associates, which include his two adult sons, Eric and Don Jr. They're being ordered to pay $4 million each. Now, the AG also asked that Trump be banned for life from practicing the real estate business in New York. The judge did not hand that down, but he is imposing some limitations on their ability to do business, including a 3-year ban from applying for loans. For his sons, they can't serve as officers or directors of a New York corporation for 2 years. And remember, both of them still work for the Trump Organization, so they would have to step down for that amount of time. And finally, Trump's businesses will be closely watched because the judge ruled that they must install a compliance director and an independent monitor. The first reaction from Trump's camp coming from his lawyer, Alina Habba. In her statement, she called the verdict an injustice and the culmination of a multi-year politically fueled witch hunt. She repeated a line that we heard her say over and over again in court, which is that this is a case with no crime and no victim. And finally, she said this ruling is a signal to every single American that New York is no longer open for business. Now, even without the so-called corporate death penalty, which is the lifetime ban that the judge didn't issue, this is a major financial blow for Trump, who was just fined $83 million by a New York jury in the defamation case brought against him by the writer E. Jean Carroll. But it's also a big hit on his brand, his self-proclaimed reputation as a real estate mogul. This ruling essentially agreed with Letitia James when she put a twist on Donald Trump's famous book, The Art of the Deal, and instead called his business The Art of the Steal. No surprise here, Trump's camp said they will appeal and, in Haba's words, overturn this egregious verdict and end the relentless persecution of her clients. Krish Reyes, CBC News, New York.
A new investigation by our colleagues at Radio-Canada's Enquête highlights concerns about how some medications are being prescribed across Canada, among them drugs commonly used to treat symptoms of anxiety and insomnia. Both patients and doctors are warning that long-term use of these drugs can lead to long-term consequences. Alison Northcott explains.
When James Dean Trepanier was prescribed benzodiazepines for pain after surgery, he says his doctor told him nothing about the drug he was taking or its side effects.
I had like 30, and he says, you won't be taking it every day. So when you come back and if you need more, well, I'm going to give you more. And
he did get more and ended up taking the pills on and off for 8 years. When he later quit, he says the withdrawal was unbearable.
Severe anxiety. Can't sleep. If you go to sleep, I'd go to sleep and I'd hear like gunshots in my head. Waking up, cold sweats.
Radio-Canada's investigative program Enquête spoke with 12 people who had similar negative experiences with benzodiazepines or hypnotics.
These medications are also called sleeping pills, anti-anxiety medications.
Experts say while the drugs can be effective to treat those conditions in the short term, some warn they're being overprescribed and used for long periods of time, and that doctors and patients don't always know the risks.
There is a need for public health leaders and health ministries to put attention towards benzodiazepines because they are behind a number of health issues.
Those can include falls, fractures, and addiction. Gagnon says about 1 in 10 people in Canada has been prescribed a benzodiazepine or hypnotic at some point. Among seniors, it's 1 in 4.
They're dangerous drugs, and so they never should be prescribed long term.
Despite warnings like that, the drugs are sometimes prescribed for years. They're meant to be used for days or weeks, says this expert, who has helped people get off benzos safely to avoid dire symptoms of withdrawal.
One of them is what we call akathisia, just severe restlessness and inability to sit still. We don't have any treatment for that. It's just a horrible feeling.
Here in Quebec, the College of Physicians says it's starting to keep track of which doctors are prescribing these drugs the most. It says that's not to sanction them, but it wants to know who they are and work with them to make sure they understand how to prescribe them safely. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Different versions of the same snack foods, some for Europe, some for Canada. We'll dive into what the ingredients are for us after the break. A marketplace investigation found some food manufacturers are producing different versions of the same snack foods. One with controversial ingredients for the Canadian market, the other without for Europeans. Here's host Rosa Marcatelli.
Stick that candy in the cart. Marketplace ordered some popular snack foods from Europe. Okay, it's here. To see how the same products can have very different ingredients, depending on where you live. Lots of good stuff. We compare them to the ones sold in Canada, scouring labels for some controversial ingredients. Allura Red, also called Red 40, Tartrazine or Yellow 5, and Sunset Yellow, FCF or Yellow 6.
These synthetic food dyes can cause or exacerbate neurobehavioral problems in some kids. So what that means is that they can cause things like inattention, hyperactivity, sleeplessness, restlessness, irritability, these sorts of things.
In the products we order from Europe, we find some get warning labels about these dyes, but others don't have the dyes at all, unlike the Canadian versions. Then there's another additive used to make food look brighter, titanium dioxide. It's not in these foods from Europe, it's banned there over concerns it could cause damage to DNA.
The fact that it has this potential to damage the DNA material is not something that we should intentionally add to food.
But here it is in the Canadian versions. We take that to parents.
It's shocking because obviously these companies, parent companies, are global. Why are they producing on purpose two different sets of products?
We're no different than people in Europe, so why is it that we have different content of the products? I think it's a great question for Health Canada.
Health Canada tells us they've reviewed these additives and found no conclusive scientific evidence that they're concerned for human health. Marketplace asked the companies behind the snacks why they make different versions of the same products, given the controversy about the additives. The companies tell us their products are safe and follow all government regulations. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, let's look at our forecast for the province. Here is Ethan Williams.
Well, Janet, we are expecting a warm-up as we head into tomorrow, and how much it warms up is going to be dependent on where you are in the province. Through the Parklands and Westman, including Brandon, that warm-up, when you compare daytime highs today to tomorrow, will be by about 3 to maybe about 6 degrees. But as you get into much of the Red River Valley and Winnipeg and into the Inner Lake, that's where the most significant warm-up is. Some daytime highs tomorrow, potentially 10 or more degrees warmer than what we have seen today. And that kind of looks to be a theme over this next week here, those warmer temperatures staying with us. In the meantime, we're looking at temperatures once again down into the mid-minus teens for northwestern Ontario. Again, you might get clipped by that system that's moving into northwestern Ontario tonight and through portions of Manitoba, northern Manitoba. And that'll give you about a centimeter or two of snow in this area overnight. For Winnipeg, the Red River Valley, and much of the rest of southeastern Manitoba, temperatures overnight not dropping too much. Will kind of be where we were for the day today. Periods of maybe some flurries or a little bit of light snow here and there early this evening before we get a bit of that clearing overnight. For southwestern Manitoba, it's the wind that will be the story. Again, there are gusts in this area, especially down toward Morden and Winkler and closer to the U.S. border and maybe as far west as Melita, where they could pick up 60 to 70 kilometers an hour overnight. So those temperatures going to likely feel closer to minus 20 with the wind. The snow continues to move through the far north as we see temperatures drop down between minus 15 and minus 20, a little bit warmer as you're closer to the Saskatchewan border. But it's tomorrow again where we start to see potentially blizzard-like conditions along the Hudson Bay coast and in places like Churchill and Shamattawa, where you could pick up a few centimeters of snow, in addition to the snow that's going to be falling overnight tonight. But temperatures improving vastly, especially for Flin Flon and the Paw, getting close to zero in some places, and that'll definitely be the case in southwestern Manitoba as we head into tomorrow, with those wind gusts, again, still quite breezy at times in the Brandon area, in Morden and Winkler. Not quite as gusty as we're going to see overnight, but still breezy, including in Winnipeg, especially as we head into the afternoon hours. Tomorrow we'll start to see those winds pick up. But again, you notice temperatures here here above seasonal for this time of year, getting near zero in some places. Still some lingering cloud cover as we head in through northwestern Ontario, but I think the snow should be over for the most part, with temperatures between freezing and -5. I'll have a look at your full Winnipeg 7-day forecast, Janet, coming up.
Thank you, Ethan. Esplanade Riel lit up in green last night. Did you notice? It was drawing attention to a cancer called cholangiocarcinoma. After the break, we meet a local woman who's living with the disease and hear how precision treatment could make a difference for her and others with rare cancers. We'll be Esplanade Riel was designed to be eye-catching. Last night, that landmark bridge glowed green to mark World Cholangiocarcinoma Day. Cholangiocarcinoma is a cancer that forms in the bile ducts that carry digestive fluids. It's rare and it's aggressive. It's also something Cynthia Mitchell's been dealing with since 2021. Hi, Cynthia. Thanks for joining us.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
So take me to Esplanade Riel last night, a cold, cold night. What was it like to be there and see people show up for World Cholangiocarcinoma Day, and really for you?
It was, I told my kids last night at bedtime that it was a core memory. We talk a lot about core memories. And for me, it was a core memory. It was just so heartwarming to show up. And especially, like you said, with that cold weather, to have such a huge turnout, an outpouring of love and support. And I don't even think any of us felt cold because we were all just so happy and excited and we were celebrating. So it was one of the greatest evenings of my life.
You've just given me goosebumps. The photos that we're showing right now, Cancer Care shared with us, they show a big check.
Yes.
Because you're fundraising for Cancer Care Manitoba Foundation with a request for funds to be directed to rare cancers and precision oncology. What kind of a difference could that make in somebody's quality of life?
Well, I think for someone, just in my own experience and having spoken with other patients with rare cancers, access to genomic testing, as well as novel treatments and clinical trials right here in Manitoba, it allows us to stay here. It's been a game changer for my care. Traditional chemotherapy treatment and surgery did not work for me. And having access to a targeted therapy has changed my life. It's given me more time with my family. And it really is not as invasive as some other interventions, and the effects are minimal, the side effects. So it's so important to me to continue to help support the research as well as the funding and the access to those treatments.
And the fundraising continues. That big check is not the final check, correct?
I hope not. No, actually, it's already larger than it was yesterday. So we do hope to continue the fundraiser at least till the 29th of February at the end of Cholangiocarcinoma Awareness Month.
Cynthia Mitchell, thank you so much for your hard work raising and for trying to take care of other people in the province. Well done.
Oh, I thank you. I mean, I've been so well cared for by so many throughout this journey. Our family feels so supported, and this was the very least that we could do to give back to Manitobans.
Have a great weekend.
You as well. Thank you.
Your 7-day forecast and daily lift are still to come. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
Well, a warmer but windier day tomorrow in the Winnipeg area with gusts close to 50 kilometers an hour. And then the sun fully comes out for the rest of the holiday weekend with temperatures pretty seasonal or just above that for this time of year. Beginning of the work week brings us some warmer temperatures on Tuesday and then dropping back down a little bit Thursday, Friday, and a little bit breezy at times. But overall, Janet, we are looking at that sunshine sticking around.
Ethan Williams, thank you so much. For many dog owners, the chance to bring their best friend to work would be a game changer. Or in this case, a game cleaner. Here's your daily lift. Rob Podock drives a Zamboni in Wisconsin. No big deal. But when he does, he's got company. Look who's riding with him. 7-year-old Penny and 2-year-old Jersey. They are a fixture, and check it out. People like it. This is their other job, testing the cleaning and picking up any popcorn that anyone drops. They have got a good time going on. Have a fantastic weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you on Tuesday at